There are certain moments in life that arrive without warning. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet turning of the heart. This is one of those moments. It happened in an airport on a soft spring afternoon, the kind of afternoon when sunlight pours through tall glass windows and makes everything feel a little gentler than usual. Daniel Harper stood near Gate 14 with his 3 daughters beside him. They were 7 years old, triplets. Their names were Lily, Grace, and Hannah. They looked so much alike that strangers often smiled in confusion. The same sandy blonde hair that fell just past their shoulders, the same bright, curious eyes, the same small pink barrettes clipped carefully on the left side of their heads. Daniel, now 49, had a touch of gray at his temples. His navy shirt was simple, neatly pressed. On his right forearm, visible when he rolled up his sleeve, was a small tattoo, an old-fashioned compass with a single word beneath it: home. He had gotten that tattoo when he was 22 years old, long before the girls were born, back when life felt wide and uncertain, back when he believed he might travel forever. But life, as many of us learned by our 50s and 60s, has a way of bringing us exactly where we are meant to be. Daniel had been raising the girls alone since they were toddlers. Their mother had passed away after a sudden illness. It had been the kind of season that changes a man quietly and forever. He had learned to braid hair, to pack school lunches, to listen more than he spoke, and over time grief had softened into something else, not smaller but steadier. That afternoon the girls were watching people walk past the gate, travelers with rolling suitcases, businessmen with serious faces, grandparents holding hands, young couples laughing too loudly. Then Lily tugged gently on Daniel's sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered. Grace pointed down the long corridor of windows, and Hannah, the boldest of the 3, raised her small arm and said in her clear little voice, "Hello, sir. Our mother has a tattoo just like yours." Daniel blinked. He hadn't even realized anyone was close enough to hear them. He turned his head slowly. Walking toward the gate was a woman in a red dress. The color was warm and confident, the kind of red that catches sunlight. She carried a small rolling suitcase behind her and held a paper coffee cup in her left hand. She looked to be in her mid-40s. Her blonde hair fell softly around her shoulders. She walked with a calm, steady grace, and when she heard the girls, she stopped. For a moment, she looked surprised. Then she smiled. Daniel felt something shift in his chest. The girls were still pointing at his forearm. The woman glanced down, and there, just above her wrist, visible as she adjusted her coffee cup, was a small compass tattoo, and beneath it, a single word: home. Daniel's breath caught. It was not exactly identical. The lines were a little finer, the ink slightly newer, but the design, the meaning, it was unmistakable. He stood slowly. The woman stepped closer, her smile gentle but curious. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to interrupt." Daniel cleared his throat. "It's all right." There was an awkward pause, the kind of pause that holds possibility. "My name is Claire Mitchell," she offered. "Daniel Harper." The girls looked between them with wide, serious eyes, as children do when they sense something important but don't yet understand it. Claire glanced at his tattoo again. "That's quite a coincidence." Daniel nodded slowly. "I got mine in 1999, after a road trip across the country." Claire's eyes widened just slightly. 1999, she repeated. "I got mine that same summer." And there it was. A memory flickered in Daniel's mind. A dusty roadside cafe in Arizona. A jukebox playing an old Eagles song. A young woman laughing as she studied a sketch of a compass on a napkin. He felt the years peel back like pages in an old book. "Were you," he said carefully, "ever in Flagstaff that July?" Claire's hand stilled around her coffee cup. "Yes," she said quietly. They looked at one another, not with shock, not with drama, but with recognition. Life, it seemed, had drawn a very wide circle. The girls were silent now. Claire crouched slightly so she was closer to their height. "You 3 must be sisters." "We're triplets," Grace said proudly. "And this is our daddy," Hannah added, as if he needed introduction. Claire smiled at Daniel again. There was warmth in her expression. Not the warmth of surprise, but the warmth of understanding. They began to talk, slowly, carefully, about that summer long ago, about youth and open highways, about how neither of them had known where life would lead. Claire had left for graduate school soon after that road trip. They had lost touch in the easy, careless way people did before social media made it harder to disappear. Daniel had married years later. He spoke gently of his late wife, without heaviness but with respect. Claire listened with kindness. She had never married. Life had taken her in different directions: a teaching career, aging parents, moves from state to state. She had loved deeply once, she said, but timing had not been on their side. There was no bitterness in her voice, only acceptance. As they talked, the girls sat quietly on the airport seats. Lily leaned against Daniel's side. Grace swung her legs gently. Hannah watched Claire with open curiosity. There is something about our 50s and 60s, isn't there? We begin to understand that life is less about the plans we made and more about the people we meet along the way. After a while, an announcement echoed softly over the speakers. Claire's flight was boarding. She stood, smoothing her dress. "It was really good to see you again," she said. Daniel felt that familiar ache of parting, the kind that once would have been sharp but now felt almost tender. "Maybe," he said carefully, "we don't have to lose touch this time." Claire's smile deepened. "I'd like that." They exchanged phone numbers the old-fashioned way, carefully typed, double-checked. Then Claire bent down and said to the girls, "You three take good care of your dad." "We do," Lily replied seriously. Claire walked toward the gate. Daniel watched her go. But this time, he did not feel frozen. He felt open. Months passed. Phone calls turned into weekend visits. Weekend visits turned into shared dinners. Claire showed the girls how to bake apple pie the way her grandmother had. Daniel fixed a loose railing on Claire's porch one Saturday morning while the girls chalked bright drawings along the sidewalk. There was no rush. At this stage in life, we learn that what lasts does not need to hurry. One autumn evening, nearly a year later, they all stood together in Daniel's backyard. The leaves were turning gold. The air held that familiar, comforting chill that reminds us of football games and warm cider. Claire stood beside him. The girls were chasing one another across the grass. Daniel looked down at his old compass tattoo. Claire reached for his hand. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think that tattoo meant I was searching for home." Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "Maybe," he replied, "it just meant home was always searching for you." The girls ran back toward them, laughing, and in that moment, not loud, not dramatic, Daniel understood something he wished he had known earlier in life. Kindness circles back, connections return. And sometimes the things we think we have lost are simply waiting for the right season to come home. For those of us who have lived long enough to see our plans change, our hair turn gray, and our hearts both break and heal, this is the quiet wisdom we carry. Life does not always move in straight lines. Sometimes it moves like a compass, steady, patient, always pointing us toward home.